Hey, I need your help. We need to find a woman named Arlene Schramm.
Sure. Who's that?
According to a message I got last night from Hannah McKay's father, she's a witness to a murder.
Whoops. Deborah, forever now to be known as Tenacious Deb, has finally got a way in to arrest Hannah, her prey, after so many episodes, right? This after Dexter has just learned so much from her. He realized this is big. He doesn't really have a dark passenger. Let's let that sink in for a moment. Right? Now everything that Dexter does, he can't just pin the blame on this dark passenger, this ill demon on his shoulder, this other thing. It's all him. It's all his responsibility, which I think is a little scary, knowing that Dexter's first kill post this realization is someone who in no way fits the code. It's a very human kill. Hannah did this in him. She guided him toward this, and now Deborah's got some possible proof of murder from Hannah's early days outside of juvie. What's a poor serial killer to do? Welcome to the Dexter Wrap-Up Podcast, our 10th one for episode 710, The Dark Whatever, written by a trio of writers, me, Scott Reynolds, Lauren Gussis, and Jace Richdale, directed by Michael Lehman, the guy from Heathers, the director of Heathers. You remember that movie? Yeah, I was super pumped about working with this guy, too. I fixated on that movie when I was a kid, and here I am working with him. I've shot 2 episodes with Michael Lehman. People, dreams do come true. This is a good life. It's crazy. It's great. Anyway, I'm Scott Reynolds. I'm one of the writer-producers here on Dexter. If this is your first time, I'm also your host. I wear a lot of hats, and I like to wear them a lot. Now, when I was thinking about how to intro episode 710, The Dark Whatever, I thought you might get a kick out of hearing part of the process of how an episode is made instead of my usual ramblings about phantoms, Hannah, and Dexter. So I'm going to sort of take you, behind the curtain a little bit. I'm going to read you the first thing that we do upon breaking an episode of Dexter. We call it the concept. I don't think a lot of shows do this necessarily. A lot of times they just go straight to like an outline. People give notes and whatever. So this, what the concept is, sort of like the pitch document, I guess. It's a less than 3-page document that gives, our executive producers Sarah Colleton and John Goldwyn, as well as the executives at Showtime, an idea of what we, the writers, want to do for an upcoming episode. It kind of offers, it's like a spine for the next document, the outline. We get notes from each of these from the above people that help us out a lot. So this is the very epitome of behind-the-scenes access here. I don't think these have been given out at all anywhere. So it'll be interesting to see, for you guys, to see if what we started with was what we ended with. So this is sort of so I'm going to read it off to you. And it's sort of broken up by characters. So the first one says, Dexter Hannah. In this episode, Hannah helps Dexter realize that he can no longer blame his actions on his dark passenger. Instead, he comes to fully accept himself and takes responsibility for who he is and what he does. As episode 710 begins, 2 weeks after Hannah's kidnapping by Isaac, we find that the ordeal has brought Dexter and Hannah even closer together. In Hannah, Dexter feels he's finally found someone who accepts all of him, both his humanity and his darkness, someone from whom he has nothing to hide. Because of this, Dexter is able to share with her his growing desire to stalk and kill the phantom arsonist that we introduced in episode 709, who is still at large and plaguing Miami. The Phantom takes particular pleasure in watching his victims die a slow and painful death, which Dexter finds abhorrent. Hannah is supportive, even encouraging of Dexter's compulsion, but when he refers to it as his dark passenger, she's amused. There's no dark passenger, she tells him. There's only you, Dexter Morgan. He's hiding behind an alter ego to feel okay about what he does. Dexter wonders if perhaps Hannah doesn't know him as well as he thought. Anyway, Dexter shouldn't kill the Phantom. He promised Deborah he wouldn't steal cases from the cops, but because of the horrific nature of the Phantom's crimes, Dexter's conflicted. This killer definitely deserves to die. Meanwhile, Hannah's widowed father, Cliff McKay, unexpectedly arrives for a visit. Dexter's where, expecting the toxic, psychologically abusive parent from Hannah's stories. But after a stint in prison, Cliff seems to have turned over a new leaf. He's remorseful and intent on establishing a new relationship with his daughter. Grudgingly, Hannah allows herself to be the slightest bit hopeful, but Cliff soon reveals his real reason for coming. He needs money and does his best to cajole it out of Hannah. When she says she doesn't have it, he quickly reverts to the monster of old, becoming frighteningly abusive and engages in emotional warfare against her. Dexter arrives to find Hannah sobbing and devastated. Ill-equipped to give much in the way of emotional support, Dexter can only order Cliff to leave. Channeling his frustration about his inability to help Hannah, Dexter stalks the Phantom and ultimately discovers his identity and whereabouts. He's struggling with whether or not to kill him when Cliff shows up at Dexter's apartment. He claims to have damning information about another murder Hannah committed in her past. If Dexter doesn't give him the money he needs, Cliff will tell the police. Dexter can barely contain his disgust and loathing for this man, but assuming Cliff is bluffing, he refuses and warns Cliff to leave town and stay out of Hannah's life. Cliff leaves, issuing his own warning. This isn't over. Putting the Phantom on hold, Dexter goes to Hannah and tells her what happened. Hannah's devastated. Cliff is always and will be the bane of her existence. She is distraught at her father's ultimate betrayal, but also worried. She is, in fact, responsible for the murder Cliff mentioned, someone who once threatened her. And in this case, she wasn't as careful as she has learned to be. Cliff's information could indeed take her down. She decides she has no choice but to pay him off. Dexter points out that there is no guarantee that Cliff will not come back for more, but Hannah sees no other option. Her father is the one person who has always had control over her, who she could never even consider killing. After all, he's her dad. Dexter walks out of Hannah's house to find Harry waiting for him. Harry knows what Dexter's thinking, that he could end Hannah's misery by killing her father himself, but he reminds Dexter that Cliff doesn't meet the code. Dexter's frustrated. There are two people he wants to kill, the Phantom and Cliff, and technically, he shouldn't kill either. Ultimately, however, in a surprise twist, Dexter decides to kill Cliff and turn the Phantom over to Deborah. The Phantom may fit the code, but by killing him, Dexter would still be hurting his sister. And even though Cliff doesn't meet the code, he's destroying the life of someone Dexter cares about deeply. For Hannah's sake, he decides, in this one instance, he can bend his code. It seems Dexter's feelings for Hannah have taken priority over everything else. When Cliff is on Dexter's table, Cliff can only stammer that Dexter's got the devil inside. Dexter says, "No, it's just me, Dexter Morgan," echoing Hannah's earlier words to him about the dark passenger, which we come to understand have finally taken root. Then he puts Cliff McKay down. Dexter tells us in voiceover that maybe Hannah knows him better than he knows himself. It's in this moment that Dexter releases this idea of a dark passenger and fully accepts himself. Later, Dexter tells Hannah that she doesn't need to pay off Cliff. Dexter told him he wasn't about to let Cliff hurt her. In the end, he got the point. Man. Hannah may or may not know what this means. She asks no questions, just hugs Dexter, affirming he did the right thing. Deborah. Deborah has spent so much energy trying to manage her complicated relationship with her brother, she's almost forgotten how to be herself. Now that it seems Hannah could be more permanent fixture in Dexter's life, Deborah realizes it's perfect time to untangle herself from Dexter and focus on what makes her feel most like her, being a cop, doing what's right. As lieutenant of homicide, it's her job to take down killers, even if that killer is dating her brother. The covering up she's done for Dexter certainly doesn't extend to Hannah McKay. If she finds any incriminating evidence against Hannah, Deborah won't hesitate to take her down. Right now, however, Deborah's most concerned with the Phantom arsonist, who has continued to set homicidal fires in the last couple weeks, leaving several victims in his wake. The cops now know that the Phantom wears a fireproof suit so that he can watch his victims die up close and personal. They've also deduced that he likes to set fires in small, confined spaces. Deborah suggests that the cops set up a tip line. Maybe somebody will see something that can help them catch this guy. The tip line pays off. The Phantom is spotted in downtown Miami. Deborah, with her mind focused on the case and not Dexter, is able to deduce the Phantom's specific location prevents another crime from happening. But the Phantom gets away. But later, Deborah's frustrated when the Phantom sets yet another fire in a public bus, and the cop's strongest lead comes up short. Finally, Deborah gets an anonymous tip, in quotation marks, that leads her to the Phantom, unconscious, surrounded by incriminating evidence. The cops are grateful for the good luck, but Deborah knows this is more than luck. It's a gift from Dexter. She calls to thank him, but questions his motivation. Why leave this guy for Deborah when Dexter could have taken him out? Dexter suggests that he did Deborah a solid. In return, maybe she'll lay off his girlfriend? In this moment, Deborah could abandon her commitment to her integrity and let Dexter manipulate her again. But instead, Deborah sticks to her guns. Nice try, she says, leaving Dexter surprised and Deborah's confidence bolstered. We soon realize that Deborah is hotter on Hannah's trail than Dexter knows. Before Cliff's untimely demise, he paid Deborah a visit and gave her a clue that could lead to Hannah's ultimate downfall. We did, if you notice, there's one thing we didn't do in that episode. In the episode, we sort of, there wasn't like a adventure chase scene with the Phantom, so that part changed. But otherwise, we're pretty much on track. LaGuardia Matthews. Now that LaGuardia and Matthews have formed an unlikely alliance to find the real Bay Harbor butcher, Matthews suggests they try a new tactic. looking to the final days of Dokes for any clues as to who could have framed him as the Bay Harbor Butcher. They started at the isolated cabin in the Everglades where Dokes was burned to death in a gas explosion. They discover the cabin was rented by Santos Jimenez. This name strikes a chord in Matthew's memory. That was the name of the drug dealer that killed Dexter's mother, Laura Moser. Matthews knows this because he was a close confidant to Harry back in the day. Jimenez has since disappeared. Could the Bay Harbor Butcher have taken him out? And if so, who was more likely to want Jimenez dead, Dokes or Dexter? Does this point to Dexter as the real Bay Harbor Butcher? LaGuardia recalls that Dokes always thought there was something off about Dexter. Was Dokes on to him? Matthews quickly points out that none of this is actionable evidence, but LaGuardia says she's going to talk to Dexter. Matthews, still unconvinced, says he'll talk to Dexter. He's known him since he was a child. He's a family friend. Finally, Quinn, Batista, George. George, feeling humiliated after his beatdown by Quinn, threatens Nadia's safety. Quinn realizes that as long as George has Nadia's passport, she's essentially his property. Quinn needs that passport. When Nadia comes to the station, afraid for her life, Batista overhears her plight and offers to help Quinn approach George and retrieve Nadia's passport. After all, Batista's got his own bad feelings toward the Koshkas and their connection to Mike Anderson's murder. Plus, he's a sucker for a damsel in distress. But when Quinn demands George give up Nadia's passport, the confrontation grows increasingly heated and turns violent. We're shocked when Quinn shoots George, killing him. Surprisingly, Batista, willing to compromise his own standards to assist his desperate friend, helps Quinn make the shooting look righteous. However, he wonders if Quinn's involvement with the Koshkas ran deeper than just his relationship with Nadia. Was the $10,000 Batista accepted from his restaurant Koshka money? Batista's no dummy. He returns the money to Quinn. Quinn understands at the end of the day, all he really wants is for Nadia to be safe, which is why he gives Nadia her passport and the $10,000 and tells her that the safest thing for her to do is to leave Miami forever. And a tearful goodbye, she does. So there it is. That's the episode 710 concept. As you heard, we stayed pretty close to the concept. It's nice when that happens. There was some, like I said before, there was some stuff that we didn't have, like an extra chase with Deb in the middle there. And I guess Batista, reading that again, Batista didn't help out Quinn as much, if at all, with the George situation and the Nadia situation. She doesn't necessarily leave Miami forever. But there's a lot of big moves, a lot of great performances, and Quinn shooting handsome George. We should talk about that, right? What do you say we do that with the man himself, Desmond Harrington? Hey, we're sitting here with Desmond Harrington. How you doing, man?
Hello.
Hello. A.K.A. Quinn.
Yes.
Quinn, Joey Quinn, Joseph Quinn, Detective Joseph Quinn.
Yes. Detective Joseph Quinn.
From Vice. Back in the day.
Narcotics.
That's right. Narcotics. Yeah, Deb
Yeah.
was in Vice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm a detective.
Now you're a homicide. You're a murder police. I like it. Or Popo. That's another. I understand people call police that, the Popo.
The Popo. P.O.
P.O.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this acting thing for a while now, right? I mean, you started off with Little Rascals. Is that
Little Rascals. 14 years.
14 years? Wow.
Yeah, 14 years.
So you were a child actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. No?
Yeah, no, I was.
Yeah.
I like my mom used to take me to auditions. No, I actually was. I finished high school. I hated school, and then I went to college for 6 weeks, and I was just like, can I curse on this?
Yeah, whatever you want.
I was like, yes. That was even, and then I started working construction, and then I eventually became a bartender in Manhattan and was invited to an acting class, and I just decided to go, and I liked it.
Oh, wow.
And I just kind of hustled from there, kept at it.
A lot of stage stuff out there too, or
no,
straight to motion picturing.
Straight to motion. Yeah, went to do my first movie was The Messenger with Luc Besson. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, that was my first. I think it was like one of my first auditions too. So
yeah,
I had no idea how to work on a film set. And, I still don't.
Luckily, you're working with the French, so
yeah,
they're very forgiving.
So and they kiss you in the morning.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
so you've been kissed by Luke?
Oh, double kiss, both cheeks. Fantastic.
Wow. You haven't carried that over on the Dexter set.
I try to. People don't want to be kissed. It's like,
jeez.
Yeah, it could be so much more fun.
It could be so much more fun if we were. There's more kissing on the Dexter set.
I totally agree. Who doesn't want to kiss in the morning?
Especially early. You guys, your call. Most times, Monday, Tuesday, you guys usually up and at 'em at what, 6 a.m.?
Yeah, 6.
Here at 6.
Here at 6, yeah.
Cool.
And I'm waking up at 4 because I'm doing coffee,
right,
and cigarettes, and got to walk a dog.
You have a dog?
Oh yeah.
What's your dog's name?
Ike.
No. Oh, Ike.
Ike.
Oh, right
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
For Ike Turner.
Actually, yes.
Was it really?
Yeah, because at the time he was around two other dogs, and their names were Nina and Etta. And I have no idea why of the R&B soul world, but he was a pit bull Great Dane mix, and I just was like, Ike, and I loved it. So that was it.
It's a good dog.
Yeah, he is.
And he lives out this way.
He lives in California, Los Angeles. He lives in my sweet 1-bedroom.
Nice.
Yeah.
Does he sleep in the bed with you?
Absolutely.
People want to know.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Dogs.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah, like people who are having the dogs in bed. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
No dogs.
No dogs.
I
and
agree.
not a Great Dane.
Yeah, no, it'd be like slobber everywhere.
No, yeah.
So you were in this Luc Besson movie.
Yes.
And then what happened then? And you
so that was kind of like my intro to the business. And then from there, I began to audition for films and got work.
Because you're a big movie head. A lot of times on set, we'll talk movies.
Yes.
You can quote things like nobody's business.
Yeah. There's particular movies that, especially like 1970s American cinema and or Goodfellas, which, as an actor, you're supposed to come up with some like bullshit foreign film that's your favorite film and be really unique about it. Goodfellas is my favorite film. I've watched it more than any other movie, so it must be my favorite film.
It is.
Yeah.
It's in my top 10 for sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's got to be number 1 for me. And I can do some mean Goodfellas quoting.
Who's your favorite person to quote on the Goodfellas?
Oh, Ray Liotta. Absolutely.
And then TV. So TV.
Yes.
How'd that happen? Is this like the first?
You talking about the invention of it, or?
Yeah, Remark Pony. Let's go back.
No, I had a TV. My first TV experience was I was going broke making movies, and I needed a paycheck,
Sure.
and there was a miniseries called Taken that Steven Spielberg was doing.
Yeah.
And I did that, and
I want you to get under the bed. Oh wait, no, it's a different Taken, isn't it?
Yeah, different. Yeah, no. So I did that, and I definitely liked the way it moved, and then I just got lucky. I had great experiences in television. I worked on Rescue Me.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
How fun was that?
Amazing.
It seems like
amazing.
Everyone just has a fun time on that show.
Yeah, Dennis Leary was, the guy is basically the writer and producer.
Yeah.
So there's just,
I feel like you guys would have a bromance, the two of you, hanging out together.
The character that I played was, he wasn't gay, but he basically had a man crush on Dennis. So he began to dress like him, talk like him, and he was dating the character is Sheila.
Yeah,
it's Callie, played by Callie Thorne, and he's dating his girlfriend. So it was great. And then I did another show called Sons and Daughters for Lorne Michaels, which was all improv.
Oh, wow. Well, that's what I think people don't realize that you told me this once, right? You come out of comedy.
Well, I don't
to a certain extent because you're almost on Saturday Night Live or something.
Yeah, well, that's how I had auditioned for Saturday Night Live, and from that I ended up on this other show for Lorne Michaels called Sons and Daughters, and I gave probably the worst audition in history for Saturday Night Live. But that's what it was as a kid. Those were my Barney or whatever you want to call it was John Belushi. Yeah. I didn't understand the jokes, but there was that frenetic energy to him, and I just
the music and the samurai.
Music, so to a kid, you're just sitting there like, wow.
Yeah.
And by the way, everybody, let's set this straight, okay? I want to come clean with this right now.
Let's do it.
I didn't have any plastic surgery. I'm not sick. It's called running and eating better. Do you understand? I'm in my 30s now.
And he
That's
looks
all
good.
it is. Yeah, I'm in my 30s. All this ridiculous stuff that I read. It's like, he's sick, he's on drugs, he's this, he's that. I'm like, what? Get a life. No, I just changed how I ate and began to run. What happens is you hit your 30s, your metabolism slows down, and you can't eat a pint of Ben & Jerry's and Domino's pie every night. So there you go.
There you go. The truth.
Yeah.
The real deal here
Yeah.
on the Dexter podcast. Yeah, because you were brought on to Dexter
Yeah.
to bring some sexy.
Yeah, and I was bringing some heft. I was bringing Hefty back, and yeah. And then they informed me you might want to cut back on the Susie.
Because you have, I gotta say, you have like the that scene, was it season 5?
Yeah.
When we understand that Detective Joey Quinn wears Speedos or something. Right? There's the tan line.
Oh, the tan line. Yeah.
The immortal tan line.
Yes.
That was awesome.
That was actually, like, I told them, like, I knew that they were going to put my ass in the shot.
Yeah.
And I always figured, I was like, this guy should just be, like, I always wanted him to be, like, this Miami kind of, and it's funny you bring up Goodfellas. The costume and the jewelry all came from, I loved the idea of Ray Liotta at the end of Goodfellas, you know, where it's like the chunky jewelry and the striped shirts and all that, and the tan line, it's like he's that guy, too. He is that guy who's kind of like, you know, he's laying out and, you know, like getting tan, so.
Screw cancer.
Yeah, he's like, whatever, I don't care about it. Yeah.
I want to look good.
Yeah, I like to look good for the ladies.
So you came on Detective Joey Quinn. Was it a little that was season 3. Season 3. It was a little daunting to step into a show that
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
Did you know anybody
on the show?
Yeah.
No, I knew nobody, and I knew the show was a very successful show, and I basically came on to a set that was a show where it was like, you're lucky to be here. It was just, and it was about doing your job. I mean, the only person that I did know was one of our producers, Sarah Colladin. She had produced a movie called Riding Cars with Boys that I was in, and Penny Marshall directed. So I knew her from, that was in 2000. So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah. That's the one person I knew.
And now it's like you guys seems like to be best friends all around. Except for CS. I mean, I know you and CS have this grudge match, but, you know.
I don't like him at all. He's just, he's just a bad person. Bad person. No, we all get along really well, and you know, it's a treat.
Just want to bring us into it seems like it is. Yeah.
It is.
So you want to bring us into the mind of Joey Quinn, like?
Yeah. You want to? Because you write it.
That's true.
No.
Yeah. Sort of a dirty cop, but not really. I feel like he's got his own code.
He does. That's exactly. I've always felt like he does. He has his own code. Like, he's a cop who he wouldn't sell out another cop. Like, and whether that's right or wrong, you know. And I think,
which is interesting because your partner is someone who has done that before.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's got a different code.
Yeah.
Sort of like your big brother, he is.
Yeah. And when we first meet Quinn, there's this stuff with Deborah where, you know, he gives her somebody that he knows, you know, on the street. This is season 3, so this is a while ago. He knows on the street and begins to say, you should go ask this guy. And that's coming from narcotics and being undercover and bribing and all that kind of stuff. And
because lines are weird in narcotics.
Very weird, yeah. I mean, the movie Narc, I think, does a great job of showing that. And it's just, it's one of the scariest jobs I could imagine.
Yeah.
But, I think, he's a guy who, he genuinely believes that, you know, it's like this money's going to go into, you know, it's going to just end up in hands of power. And I'm out there putting my ass on the line, so thank you very much. I'll take it.
Right. He would never hurt anybody. He would never slap. I mean, unless they deserved it. Then he would. But
we
as we found out.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's also someone that seems to sort of wear his heart
on his sleeve.
Sort of on his sleeve, but it's sort of guarded. Because you float around from chick to chick on this show.
Yeah, originally the idea I think was that he was like a ladies' man, but he's a ladies' man who ends up like constantly getting stuck.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, the search for any person is to find love, and I guess, you know, he's not immune to that, you know, and I think that his true love was Deborah. You know, I personally believe that. And since then, it's just been like he's just.
It wrecked Quinn a little bit. That breakup.
It wrecked him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I don't. You know, in my mind, he's never proposed to another woman before, and he
never will again,
and most likely never will again. So
because women just keep stepping on Quinn's heart.
They just keep beating him down. Yeah. He God. It's so weird. It parallels my own life. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does.
So this season,
yes.
So Deb breaks your heart. Mm-hmm. He starts drinking all the time.
Yep.
Starts sort of not showing up for his partner. His cop life suffers a little bit.
Yep.
And then he runs across Foxy Raven. No, not Foxy Raven. Which I love that scene in the first episode.
I do too. It was great. You don't speak English. She's like, I don't speak English. You're speaking it right now.
That's your given name. He meets Nadia.
Yes.
Nadia, I forget her last name.
Something
Ukrainian.
Something Ukrainian. Absolutely.
Nadia, something Ukrainian.
Yeah, played by Katya Winters.
Yes, she was great.
Great actress, and you know, just really
gorgeous. Yeah,
she's pretty. Yeah. Very pretty. Very pretty. I don't notice that as a professional.
No.
So
you don't see in color or gorgeousness.
No. It's all just like I'm lost completely in my character. I have no idea what's going on outside.
So Joey starts to sort of protect. I feel ends up being very protective of this person.
Yes, I think that he you know, he's
because we talked about this on set one of the days about how it's like it seems like Joey just falls for this person. Yeah, like sort of head over heels. Yeah, but I feel like it's something more than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think he needed for himself like some sense of redemption. You know, that like he sees this person basically. I mean, it is in a world. This girl's in a world of. Yeah, you know, I mean, like I don't know if there's
it's like sex trafficking.
Yeah, it doesn't get anywhere. Yeah, does it get anywhere? I mean, yeah, dragged over here and all that, and you know, maybe he sees a little bit of himself in her. Yeah, or whatever, you know, and he just realizes that there's a certain genuineness to her, and that he wants to help her. Yeah, you know, and he begins to go to any length to help her. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, and which is because there's also we reveal. I think we reveal it in the first episode, in the premiere episode. We reveal there's a back history between you and George Novikov, Jason Gedrick. Yes, who's sort of like the beefier, slightly beefier, larger-headed version of Joey. I feel like a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he's a guy that's just here, wants to do his job. Yeah, wants to do it well. Yeah. Wants to make some money for his bosses. Yeah. Has his own sort of code, even though he's a scumbag. Yeah, exactly. Scumbag pervert.
Yes, yes. Yeah, he goes to a level that Quinn wouldn't go to. I'll say that much. Like, yeah, there's they probably. But
even that's part of his code.
I could see the two of them very easily growing up together, and one went to the police force, and one went into organized crime.
That'd be a good movie.
Yeah, let's write that.
Hey,
let's write that.
Joey, George. The childhood years.
Joey, George, threatening each other.
Did you guys get along well on set? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Had you worked with him before?
Never worked with him. But he's, you know, anybody who just can, it's great working with any intense actor like that. And he just does a fantastic job, so.
Which all leads to episode 710.
Yes.
When George and Joey finally come to heads there.
Yep. No more talking.
Yeah, no more talking. Because George has a strange hold over Joey.
Yeah,
with the money and the history and
yeah, he has history. He has basically given me money. He has a tape recording now of me saying, if you give Nadia her freedom, I'll steal this blood evidence for you.
Which set Isaac free.
Which sets Isaac Zerko free. I mean, there's a whole...
Yeah. Which broke... I think that was a big transgression of Joey Quinn's code.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Stealing... Yeah. I mean, thank God for Jason Gedrick killing him. So, yeah, it was...
Let's talk about that it was a great scene. The killing. You busting back in that room to go rescue.
Yeah, he goes into the room, and at this point, the idea is that I've kept my end of the deal. As horrible as my end of the deal was, setting this person free and all that, I've kept my end of the deal. Right. This guy's completely fucked me over. Yeah. And now he's basically comes out with this girl who's like helpless in his hand. He's got her by the hair, and he's basically saying, I'm going to send her to a sex club.
In Dubai.
In Dubai.
I have a feeling those aren't nice places in Dubai.
Yeah. And, I mean, essentially, I think it comes down to the point where this guy, I walk into that room, and he is beating the shit out of her. Yeah. And it's just... And then there's this whole history, and it comes to a point where I'm never going to get out of this.
There's only one way.
There's only one way out, and but I think in the moment, he's seeing him beat her and realizing that it's just time. Yeah, and he kills him.
I feel like chicks are going to love Joey Quinn even more now.
You think?
Oh my gosh.
I wonder if they like him to begin with.
Well, they did at first, but but he's so protective in that. You're so protective in that moment. It's you don't feel bad that this guy gets shot without a weapon or anything. It's like this.
Yeah, no, he actually. I don't know if this is gonna be, but the beginning of the scene, he pulls a gun. He has a gun, so he does have a gun. But yeah, I mean, honestly. At this point, if you feel sorry that I killed Jason Gedrick, get a life. Seriously, watch the scene. He's beating the crap out of a defenseless girl.
And he goes down.
And
now you've got Batista, your partner, rushing toward the back.
Batista comes rushing towards the back, and he comes in, and that whole part of the scene is very interesting, in that he comes into the room, and I think I've always felt like, I lie to him, essentially. And I feel, obviously, I think that he does know what happened. Yeah. To some degree. And that, and there's the scene. It's a heartbreaking, that scene with him and with Jennifer was heartbreaking. Yeah. The final part of the scene. I don't know am I skipping ahead right now?
No, you're good, yeah.
It was heartbreaking because he's looking at Jennifer, Deb, and he's saying, this is my girlfriend's in a strip club. And as much as he cares about her, about Nadia, it's this is my life. Yeah. I'm basically I was with you, I loved you, and this is where I'm at now. And then he sits down with his partner, and he has this one moment to just come clean, and he just says, I told you what happened, and this is what happened.
And everybody lives into it.
Yeah. And I think that especially for me, I believe that there is an understanding that, Batista kind of knows that there is more to the story.
Because Batista, earlier in the season, we saw Batista thinking that the death of Mike Anderson, the bartender was not the right guy. There's something off here, and George Novikov seems to be at the head of it. So I feel like there's I don't know, it's a really cool moment between the two of you that justice has been made. Yeah, the lines have been blurred a little bit, but
let's just leave,
and leave Nadia out of it.
The lines got blurred, but at the end of the day, this guy is,
I feel like they have each other's back from this point on.
Absolutely.
Things have been sort of healed up. And
absolutely. I feel like, me and Batista have obviously, or Quinn and Batista have, had some very entertaining scenes together, and now they're at a point where things maybe have gotten serious, but they understand.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this? We're getting to the end of this thing. Thanks for coming up. But what was the name of the? If there was ever to be a crossover, I think we need to bring the character you played on Justified. What was his name?
Fletcher, the Ice Pick Nicks.
Yes. Who do you think would win? Fletcher, the Ice Pick Nicks versus Dexter Morgan.
I gotta give it to Dex.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm gonna stab him in his hand. Yeah, I mean, there's not. I thought
Dexter
about it.
Wouldn't play the game.
I thought about it for a second, and I was like, no way.
Fletcher, the Ice Pick, would be over.
Fletcher would
going back to his hotel room after a kill, and then
he'd be like, damn.
And suddenly there's Dexter with a needle.
That Dexter's good.
That was a lot of fun, I imagine, though, after watching a psychopath for so many years on Dexter, and suddenly you get to be a pure psychopath.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've never played very likable characters, and for me, playing that is there's a lot of fun to playing, because there's not really much. There's a famous saying, and I forget who said it, but it's like, how do you play the king? You don't play the king. Everybody else plays the king for you. So it's like set up, you know? So you have this character that's already, we know what he is, how dangerous he is. It's set up.
Yeah.
So really, I can do whatever I want at that point, you know? And it's kind of like, oh, this guy's bananas, you know?
Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And by the way, everybody likes Joey Quinn.
Thank you.
If you say he's an unlikable guy, I think he's very likable. What you bring to the table is a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I hope he's likable. I try.
Do you look at the internets? Do you look at the internets?
The internets?
It's a series of tubes.
Yes. No, what you definitely see is like, you see the reviews and stuff like that.
Oh,
of
course.
You see the comment sections, and you're like, oh my God. Like, and the best is when people say, like, they should just kill him. I'm like, Jesus, take it easy. What, I mean, really? Really? Take it easy. Be nice.
Ignore them. I give you permission to ignore them.
I honestly haven't lost any sleep over it.
No, good.
I ain't giving it.
All right, hey, man, thank you so much for coming on in, for doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, anything you want to tell anybody? What do you want next? You got something coming up?
Nope.
You're done. Acting career's over.
Yep. Basically just moving off.
Season 8.
Yep. Season 8, and then Compound somewhere.
Wait a minute. You know what I forgot?
What?
One of the greatest moments of my year was I was at the ArcLight at the Dome watching Dark Knight Rises, and suddenly, and that big giant screen, suddenly there you are screaming at me, just get off the bridge.
To get off, yeah.
That was awesome.
That
was incredible.
For me watching it, all I see are big teeth. Because since I'm a kid, the people were like, you got crooked teeth, you got big teeth, and I'm like, well, there go the teeth. Great. There's the teeth.
It was cool.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was.
You're on Batman.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it's amazing just to be a part of that whole franchise, and especially with Chris Nolan and the people who are in it. It was amazing.
Yeah,
so.
we got to get you in a superhero costume soon.
Oh dear.
Let's make that happen. Hey, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Check you later.
All right. Bye.
As I want to say, I'm sitting here with Scott Buck.
Hello.
That's the voice of Scott Buck,
yes,
showrunner of Dexter. And also Tim Schlottman. You can say hello.
Oh, hello.
Yes, he's the...
It's kind of early.
It's kind of, it is. The writer of episode 709.
Helter Skelter.
Helter Skelter. So you, Tim, I always talk to the writer of the episode a little bit about where you came from. Beyond Nebraska. But you started your career in a very different place, huh, Professor?
Yeah.
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 So you want to talk just like a quick nutshell of the wild and crazy career of Professor Tim Schlotman?
I mean, before...
Were you a professor? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, before I was a professor, I was also a DJ. And
that's right.
So, you know,
Listen to
like
that voice.
Like many people, I almost wanted to break into the weather forecast. You know, I've had some transitions in my career, but everything was always kind of communication-based.
Right.
And so as I was teaching radio and television production, I realized that I hadn't really kind of, you know, gone after my dreams, which
Right.
was to leave the cornfields and head out to Hollywood. And I didn't know a soul, and I just packed up my dog and moved out.
Moved to Beverly.
Yeah, and just, you know, did phone calls and cold calls and resumes, and I got on within about a month. So I was lucky in that sense that, you know, I wasn't looking for a job for a long time, but I got on as a gopher, as a production assistant on an NBC show. And that's kind of what, you know, put my foot in the door. But I always knew I wanted to write, so I was very focused when I came out. And I think a lot of people who come out, you know, to look for a career in this business, it's really easy to think, oh, you know, I want to direct, I want to write, I want to produce, I want to act. And it's like, no, just focus on one of those areas, because they're all crafts, and they all take, you know, like any craft, it takes years to master. And so I think you get bifurcated and trifurcated when you're, you know, all over the map when you're trying to break into the business. But I knew I wanted to write. So that's where I put my energies.
And when you were, I imagine when you were a PA, like Buck, you came up the same sort of way, like in sitcoms and all that.
Started as a PA, sure.
Yeah. It's important to give all you have when you have that job.
Well, it's, you know, for me, it was just kind of
The
being
coffee's important.
Yeah, food is important.
Getting the coffee.
If the sandwich isn't, you know, cut diagonally, but if it's cut in half, then, you know, all hell's about to break loose.
Sounds like baloney, but it's important.
Yeah, and you know, it's just important though when you come in from the production side that you kind of see, you know, how everything is put together, how it's made, and so it informs your writing, because now all of a sudden you have a different, you know, perspective and take when you're actually writing a scene, knowing what can and can't be done and what the production, you know, process looks like.
You've had boots on the ground.
Yeah.
The killing of Isaac, your episode, you killed Isaac. A lot of people...
I killed the Punisher. I like to think of it in those terms.
You killed the Punisher. That is right. Let's talk about the decision. A lot of people love the way it happened. Some people were sort of like, what? I can't believe you killed Isaac already in episode 9. Some people wanted a more traditional kill by Dexter, so I thought maybe we could like open this up by starting off talking about the decision to kill Isaac in 709. Yeah, no, I mean, one. I guess the first thing is it was out of our hands in some ways.
I mean,
right?
we knew from the beginning that he would be. That this character would end a little bit sooner. For one reason, we just didn't have the actor for that long, because he had to fly back to Europe almost the very next day and be fitted for a movie. So we knew we would be losing him early, but that had sort of been the intention regardless, because I think people so often are expecting the bad guy to die in episode 11 or 12, and it's just a little bit more fun to play with the formula a little bit.
Yeah. It's a nice surprise, for sure. We want to talk quickly about the how we came to do this particular sort of death with Isaac. I mean, because I know at the very beginning, I think we talked about this a little last week, that no, we didn't talk about it at all, but that we sort of expected him to die on a table or in some sort of very much more traditional. Even Ray thought he was going to die in a much more traditional way, and we didn't go that way.
I think the more we worked with Ray as Isaac, the more we grew to like this character, and we really didn't want to see him in that way, because we also realized that Dexter was bonding with this character in a way that was really interesting. So this is a bad guy that we actually liked, so we gave him a slightly different end.
Yeah, and I think you were pushing for something like this a little bit too, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, you know it's interesting when you go inside the process and you know how actors will have chemistry with one another.
Yeah.
And Michael C. Hall and Ray Stevenson, they had this great chemistry that you know it's a little bit of alchemy. You when you're putting it on the page, you don't know if that's ever going to be there with the actors, and then when you see it, you want to write toward it. And And so while we always had a plan for the character of Isaac, some of the particulars started to morph and change for us because we wanted to give the audience, more of what we were seeing, which was this great back and forth between two great actors.
Who each have secrets, who each they connect in ways they never expected.
Yeah, they really are, two sides of the same coin. They're both killers, and I think that's something that the episode explored a little bit is Isaac trying to just figure out what kind of killer you are, because he's seen a lot, and Dexter just seems to be this anomaly that is driving this curiosity, and also it's going to inform Isaac's decision on whether or not to kill Dexter. I think that was something that was always still at the forefront of any interaction between these two characters. If one makes a mistake, if one says the wrong thing, someone's going to die. Right. And it was nice to see these guys kind of come to an agreement. And then the character of George, had other plans. And I think that what was fun was I don't think anyone, would have sat down before that episode and guessed that George was going to be, the killer of Isaac. And I don't think it diminished Isaac's death at all. It was a surprise to the audience. It was a surprise to the character that George would be lurking. And sure, we saw Isaac take out a bunch of Colombians in a bar, but he was armed and ready. He had just thrown his gun over the side of the ship. And
he's a man of honor.
Yeah, and it was the last thing he was expecting.
Stinking handsome George. All right, well, hey, let's get to the questions from the fans. That's cool with you guys. Lewis on Facebook asks, why are you changing Dexter so much? Dexter was so unique. Many of us feel you're changing him too much, making him too sensitive, in quotation marks, and mushy, in quotation marks. Why? What is your point in doing this, says Lewis on Facebook.
I think we could have kept Dexter exactly the same as he was, but I think the show would have grown very old very fast if you see Dexter do and think and say the exact same things over and over. For us, the show was always conceived as someone who thinks he's a monster but longs to be human, whether he acknowledges that or not. And there's always been a very slow evolution of this character throughout the seasons. It's just more interesting to watch someone change than watch someone be exactly the same day after day.
And it's also interesting that sometimes we, the writers, will be criticized for being sloppy, that Dexter isn't like the old Dexter.
Right.
And, it's not by lack of design that, I think it's been inherent in this character's journey that he's been an unreliable narrator and he's been telling us he's a monster, but really there's humanity in there. And what we have been showing from season to season is that humanity starting to poke its way through. But guess what? When you are human, you make mistakes. Yes. And so the things that some might look at and go, oh, the character is being so sloppy. Oh, that's not like the Dexter that we used to know. That's not...
he's not the Dexter we used to know. He's actually, this season, he's someone that wants to become human a little bit.
And I think, sometimes that...
used to be scary to
that
him,
gets lost in the translation. That, what you're seeing is always by design. It's not that, we're just, sitting back and kind of our heels on the coffee table going, oh, whatever.
So sometimes we have...
Okay, sometimes that happens, but... Usually around 5 o'clock.
H. Furnish on Twitter asks, how do you decide episode titles, Mr. Helter Skelter? And what was the... I think from the beginning or something that happens during shooting that they want to know?
I think each writer comes up with his or her own title, and everyone has sort of their own method. With me, it's usually picking an obscure line from the episode that doesn't quite make sense until you've watched the episodes. Other people do it different ways.
Some think, is this a Quinn Martin production?
I mean, sometimes, a title will stick in your head from, a movie, a song. Other times it's thematic. And in this one, it was a little bit of both. There was so much going on in this episode.
It's a line, too.
That Isaac actually refers to it.
Where are you going to all Helter Skelter? Sir Boomstick on Twitter asks, why did Hannah look unhappy when Dexter told her he felt safe with her? This is a big... a lot of people on Twitter were picking up on this, and on Facebook. Is she sort of turned off towards Dexter? It's that moment when Dexter sort of nuzzled his face into her neck, and she sort of looked off into the distance, and she wasn't exactly super thrilled, but she wasn't unthrilled either. She was sort of hard to read in that moment.
Well, again, I think that's part of the design, but I mean, you could say that his knee was resting against her stitches, and because he did get into bed with her. But yeah, it's. I mean,
the fun of when an actor does something.
And
that wasn't on the page.
And I think with this show in particular, there's always an ambiguity of what it is that you're seeing, and then the subtext and what else is going on with the characters. And I think that's what's so fun is when you watch it and then you can talk about it, with other people.
What did that mean?
Yeah.
But I think you could also say that Hannah knows having a relationship with Dexter is not necessarily a safe, happy thing. So any acknowledgement that this relationship is good and ongoing also brings the flip side of what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, because she doesn't have exactly the greatest track record, as Deb has said.
No.
There's a question from two different people, almost the exact same question. So I am Deals and Lorray20 on Twitter. We're both wondering why Dexter didn't mention the third time. They felt like there was a third time Dexter was scared when Travis kidnapped Harrison. Which I mean I have a thought behind that a little bit.
I think the way I would parse it out is that there is a fear for others and then a fear for yourself. And I think what Dexter, when Hannah related such a personal story of feeling like she was drowning and dying, and asking, have you ever been that afraid?
Right.
I don't think Dexter was afraid for his death when Travis had Harrison. I think the question and the way Dexter was reflecting the question was it was more personal. Have you personally ever felt that afraid? And I think those are still probably the two times that Dexter's felt that kind of fear, a
Tim
personal
stands
fear.
by it. Yeah. It's also that weird psychopath thing that if you can do something about it, you don't feel fear.
Yeah.
Because Dexter's very much a man of action. So with Travis, it was like, I'm going to go get him.
Right.
But with the other two,
Yeah.
with his mother when he's 3 years old, and with Hannah, there's nothing he could do, and that creates fear in people too. Yeah. Televixen on Twitter asks, and this is a sort of a production question, I think, a little bit maybe. But also, Televixen on Twitter asks, how did Dexter get away with killing someone in the middle of the day at a gun range? We got a lot of questions of that, because it's a bright day.
Well, you can see that, for one thing, the body is hidden behind those barriers, and he was just laying down in a position that he'd always been laying down in. Yeah. And you also have to assume within seconds, within moments, that someone would have realized this person had been killed. But by that time, Dexter was long gone, and he used a fake name there. So
I mean, sometimes, and a scene was shot. That kind of explained a little bit. It gave some exposition as Dexter checked out of the gun range, but
he had a false ID and all.
He had a false ID, and clearly, he's not familiar with guns, and it was no big deal. And then, I've also heard from people who have lived in Florida that you put down some cash and an ID, and you have a gun and you have a lane at a firing range, and it's not really a big deal, but. Sometimes things are cut for just production purposes in terms of trying to make the episode come in on time, and so it's a shame that some of those things that kind of fill in some of the blanks do fall away. But we have to
makes it lean and mean and fast.
Yeah, and you have to bring your episode in on time.
Ravens for Life, last question. Ravens for Life on Twitter asks, I don't really understand why Isaac would rather be dumped in the ocean dead than in the hospital in recovery. Please explain. And the other question I also had, lots of people had this question, was did Hannah poison Jurg, or did he just choke on the food? So first question about Isaac being dumped in the ocean.
I think it was made clear, hopefully made clear in dialogue, that Isaac knew he wouldn't survive even if he was brought to the hospital, because the bullet was still inside him and there was massive bleeding. And also, truly, there was a side of him that really didn't want to live anymore without his
life
lover.
Was over without Victor, And the Koshka Brotherhood is after him.
And even though he came to Dexter fearful for his life, it wasn't until he was wounded that I think he kind of realized and gave into, the loss that he had suffered. And at that point, technically, maybe he could have, survived the wound. But I think emotionally, he didn't want to.
Yeah.
And as far as Hannah poisoning Jörg, she poisoned him with a lot of pepper just to get him to choke, to distract him long enough so that she could get behind him. So.
All right. Hey, thanks, Tim. Thanks, Buck, for coming in. That's the end of the 10th Dexter Wrap-Up podcast. Only 2 more to go. So if you aren't getting enough of Dexter, you can always go to show.com and look up early cuts episodes on there. They're the animated stuff that Tim Schlottman did a series, and Lauren Gussis and I, we all did 3 different seasons to go back into Dexter's past. You really should watch the latest one. It ties in well to the rest of the season. I think you'll dig it. And the art by David Mack, and you had Sienkiewicz and David Mack.
Yeah, they're awesome.
It's spectacular stuff. You should look it up on show.com. Now, if you have some questions after watching episode 710, The Dark Whatever, you can get them answered in the next podcast by the writers, me, Scott Reynolds, Jace Richdale, and Lauren Gussis, as well as Mr. Scott Buck. You can post up your questions for that episode on facebook.com/Dexter. Or if you're to Twitter, then hit us up at twitter.com/SHO_Dexter. But put hashtag Dexter wrap up with your question. Do it Monday night at the latest. We compile them Tuesday morning, pick the best of the bunch, and ask away on the podcast bright and early.
How are you going to do that? You're going to host the podcast and write an episode? My God. You're a double threat.
Lots of hats.
Yeah.
I want to thank Desmond Harrington, a.k.a. Detective Joey Quinn, for making us laugh. He brought us deep into the mind and wardrobe of Quinn, and we're all better people for it. I also want to thank Rob Galuzzo, a.k.a. Rob G., the producer sound guy for the podcast. He gets things done. I'm Scott Reynolds, one of the writers here on the show. You can find me on Twitter at JSCOTTAMY, J. Scott Amy. I'm looking forward to posting up some fun stuff in the final few weeks of the Dexter season. Catch us next week when our guest will be none other than Dexter himself, Michael C. Hall. Yeah, it's a really great long interview, which isn't normal for him, which he brings us deep into the mind of Dexter, into how the show is made, where Michael's roots are. You really don't want to miss it. Tell your friends. Let's make this the #1 TV film podcast of the week. Michael C. Hall. That's it. That's the end. But don't worry, it's going to happen again and again. It has to happen. Have a good week.